In this demonstration for BarTender Integration software, we're going to review the label output from our previous video, Print to BarTender, from an event in Business Central. And we'll review the rest of the BarTender Label Integration Log in Business Central. Before we do, let's review one setting in the BarTender Integration setup, which we reviewed in the previous video in this series. Let's click the magnifying glass at the top right of our page when the search box opens. We can type BarTender Integration Setup. We see it in the results list and we select it. This will open up the BarTender Integration Setup page, and you'll notice Enable Logging is toggled on. If it's not toggled on, then your print jobs will not be logged in the BarTender Label Integration Log. Now we can close BarTender Integration Setup, and we click on the magnifying glass at the top right of the page. This time, we're going to search for BarTender Label Integration Log. When you see it, you can select it from our results list, and it'll open up the integration log page. The BarTender Label Integration Log is a great place to troubleshoot labels when they don't print or print incorrectly. The first column we have is entry number, which adds a numerical value to the record and increments by 1 for each record. Next, we have the web request URL. This comes in handy when you have integration per label selected in the BarTender Integration setup. This specifies the integration URL being used for that print job. Now we have web request method, and this will always be post, so we don't have to review that too much. Next is the request body, and this is where you view what Business Central is sending when you print to BarTender. If we click the request button on the latest record, we'll see what we sent to BarTender in our previous video, Print to BarTender from an event in Business Central. This downloads a .json file that you can open in Notepad. This tells us what label we're sending it to, and it tells us each table with the field name and the value being sent for it. Each table field name is sending a value in quotes, and this tells us that Business Central is sending the correct data to BarTender. Let's close this for now. Now we can review this column, which is response code. Response code is a message received from the server confirming if it responded. You can see we have some OKs. We have one specific message telling us the service is unavailable, and then we have no responses, meaning these records didn't even get a response from the server. The next column we have is the response body. This will give us the message from the server, if the job gets that far, whether it's successful or unsuccessful. If we click the response body on the latest record from our previous video, it'll download that .json file that we can open in Notepad, and you can see the status is ran to completion. Now let's close that. If we click the response body on the record service unavailable, it will download a .json file that we can open in Notepad, and this gives us a specific HTTP error 503. The service is unavailable. This record was sent. The service was not running, and that's why we're getting that message. The next column is has error. This will include a check to see if the server returns any message at all. The next column after that is error message, and this will show an error message when the server returns one. If we hover over it, you can see this one is very specific. It says service is unavailable, just like the response code. But if we hover over the other ones, you can see it's very generic. The remote server returned an error. Same thing for all of those. We do have one more column all the way at the end called error detail, and if we click the yes for the record, that's sending a generic message. It will download a .json file that we can open in Notepad and get a more specific error message. This one was failing due to network connectivity, DNS failure, or a server certificate validation, or a timeout. So the next column after that is label code. This is specifying what label code is being used in the print job. This comes in handy when you have a ton of records for multiple labels. It's nice to be able to say, all right, really quickly, this is my label code. Let's look for that. The next column after that is who it's created by. And then we have created at, which tells us what time and day this record was created. We also have client type for Business Central Cloud. It's always going to the web, but if it's on-premise, it might be a client. Then we have source ID, which is just telling us the table being used for label per record on the label. And of course, error detail, which we just reviewed. And that's it for the BarTender Label Integration Log. Thanks for watching this demonstration for BarTender Integration Software. Please check out other videos in the BarTender Integration Series.